Hi, my name is Philip Nanfuri and welcome to MX24, the show Spotlight. I want to say a very big thank you for joining us this fine Tuesday evening. And on tonight's agenda, we'll be discussing the customer service. I'm sure you're well aware they've sent you a plethora of messages from your financial institutions, your telcos, everybody wishing you a happy customer service month, customer service week. We want to delve into it and find out what it's all about, the history of customer service, and why it's necessary within the Ghanaian fabric. We've been told that Ghanaians are very hospitable people. Why do we have to take a month aside or a week aside or whatever you call it to discuss customer service? But before we do that, I want us to have a look at our guest profile. Her name is Yvonne Ohui MacCartey.
Yvonne Ohui MacCartey is the president and head consultant of Institute of Customer Service Professionals. She is a former banker who worked under the authorization of the FCA, formerly FSA, in the United Kingdom. She acquired her banking qualifications from the Chartered Insurance Institute. She also has a customer service professional CSP qualification from the London Institute of Banking and Finance. Yvonne also has the Professional Award in Training the Trainer from the London Institute of Public Speaking and an award for the Advanced Training the Trainer from Institute of Leadership and Management UK. Yvonne consults for the British Council in Ghana and has worked with two very reputable banks in the UK, namely NatWest and Santander, in the areas of service quality and customer service management. Yvonne has trained many individuals and businesses in Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia and Cote d'Ivoire under the Institute of Customer Service Professionals and the British Council on their Connecting Classrooms projects for 4 years.
All right, so welcome back from that brief profile. That's our guest, Yvonne Ohui MacCartey. I want to say a very big welcome to her, and thanks for joining us. I know you have a packed schedule. This month is your cocoa season, but you've come to more or less, I don't want to say it yet, but anyway, a big thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
how have you been? I mean, the last time we spoke, it was in a different life of mine. We discussed, I think it was last year around this time, we discussed customer service. But how have you fared, given the pandemic, given your own personal life? How have you been? Just let us know what you've been up to.
Everything has been fine. I mean, it's nothing short of what I expected it to be. Of course, the pandemic is not something that we anticipated, seeing in 2020. I had a lot of focus for what I was doing for 2020. I had big dreams, but obviously you can't always have things your way. You need to re-strategize when these things happen, and I have. So everything has been good. Business is going on as usual. Of course, I've had to change the way in which I do my business, because when you're training and consulting, you do a lot of face-to-face business. We're really migrating online. So business-wise, everything is fine. I really can't complain.
And as we were listening to your profile, it made mention of your experience in the banking sector. But you've come out of that, more or less what everybody would want to do. When you ask somebody what do you want to do, I want to be a banker, lawyer. You've taken a field, customer service. Before you got into it, what were some of the things that were going through your mind? Did you think you would ever, and let me be bold to ask this, did you think this would be able to put bread on your table?
To be honest with you, just like most dreams that people have in the beginning, you started off with your passion. I started it off with my passion. And for some reason, I've always said, if you have the passion, you can go 4 or 5 years and not really think about the money. The money is coming now. But when I started in the beginning, it was all about, let me do something that will change people's mindsets, that will change, organizations, it will change the way people think when it comes to customer service. So in the beginning, I was very young when I started thinking about customer service. I really honestly wasn't thinking about the money. But somewhere along the line, I was like, this thing better put something on my table. And so then again, yes, I had to reevaluate what particular things I wanted to do in customer service to be able to put money on the table.
For our viewers, we'll be playing a video shortly on customer service before we delve into the main meat of our conversation. But Yvonne, you were mentioning that when you were very young, I just heard my director speaking to my ear and asking me to ask you how old you were, because perhaps maybe he's seen something he likes. I don't know. I can't tell, but he's a very nifty character. The person speaking into my ear. So
Okay.
he wants to know whether you give any indication of how old you are and stuff like that.
Oh, I can always give my age. I'm not one of those people who's
Oh,
like,
really?
oh, yeah, I don't have a problem. I'm 36.
Oh, wow.
I turned 36 this April.
Oh, nice.
I've never been afraid of, talking about my age. But I moved back to Ghana when I was 26. That was 10 years ago in 2010.
Okay.
And that's when I started taking customer service as a profession seriously. So when I said when I was very young, I started working at the age of 17. Actually 16 when I was here with my dad. But I left here when I was 17 and turned 18 in London, and that's when I started working. So I got exposed to customer service and how it should be done properly really early. Not the Ghanaian way, as in just smiling, but understanding that you have to, customer service about strategies, it's about implementing, it's about just making sure that you have the right systems in place.
Okay, so as you've drawn parallels between what's done in the UK or London, let me say, and what's done in Ghana, we'll delve into that in our conversation. But for now, I want us to take a look at a video the production team put together on customer service.
We all love to receive great customer service. As consumers, it makes us feel good. So much so, consumers now rate customer service as the most important factor when deciding to do business with a company. This means the traditional competitive advantages such as price, location and product are rapidly disappearing. In the technological era, customer service is king. Sad to say, but when it comes to customer service, we've all had a bad experience, and news of bad customer service reaches more than twice as many ears as praise for good customer service. So it's really important to understand and avoid certain behaviours that make our customers angry. In a recent survey, 57% of customers expressed frustration that the company was not available when needed. 56% of customers felt that customer service is still too slow. And 42% of customers felt that they have to speak to multiple agents before their problem is resolved.
Right, so that was a video we took from the internet of internets, and to find out what exactly customer service is. That's from the business team's perspective. But we have the expert here. And Yvonne, when we are discussing things in the business world, there are always definitions for things. But customer service, I feel, is something that you should feel, you should experience. But beyond that experience and that feel, what can we call customer service to be, or what can we describe it as?
Right. So, in layman terms, it's anything you do to assist or to support a customer whilst they're buying or paying for a product or a service. So that's the word, is service. It's just the action that accompanies, whatever they're buying, their purchase. But I always say to people, we've moved from that definition. These are the definitions you get on Google, and but if you come to an expert's point of view, I would always tell you customer service has moved beyond just the support or the assistance. It's gone into strategy. It's gone into implementation. It's gone into planning. So it's the strategies you put in place, it's the plan you put in place, it's the questions or the surveys you take in order to understand your customer. That is what customer service is now.
And with regards to its history, there's always something that more or less stokes the fire for something to more or less happen in the world. With customer service, was there anything that made us start celebrating a whole month? Because bear in mind, we're also celebrating breast cancer awareness this month also. But for us to take a whole month, and last week, a lot of emails, text messages from financial institutions, telcos, everybody across board. What happened in history, or why is there a need for us to celebrate it this whole month?
Right, so I think it started in 1984, the International Customer Service Association in the US, and they decided, I think along the line, that this is an area of business we cannot ignore. We can't celebrate it every day, but at least let's choose one particular week in a year where we pay attention to our consumers, the customers, how they feel, and how to take care of them. So that's where it actually came from. But I can tell you that for me, I believe customer service has always been there from the very inception of buying and selling, because it has to do with what you do whilst you're giving the person the product or the service and when you're taking their money. So it's been there, but professionalizing it and making sure that it's something that becomes a strategy that businesses follow, I can say that started from 1984.
Okay, let me follow up with some sort of analogy I was playing in my head, or sort of question. So we know the US is mainly consumer driven. if you look at our GDP, consumption plus investment plus exports minus imports, you realize that the consumer plays a critical role. Ghana is a country that has come from relatively young as compared to the US. We've come from colonial, then we've come from a system where we had more or less some sort of dictatorship, and some may argue that it wasn't the case, but there was some uproar in Ghana. Then we came to the mixed economy that we have now, where we have the government playing a role, and then the consumer or the private individual. So some may argue that the US is mainly consumer driven, so they should be doing that. But we are not really. So it's more or less what the state gives you is what you get. What's your view on that? Do you think the fact that it's not only the public sector that we should focus on, or I don't know your view on that? If you understand my question.
As we said, we're not just looking at the public sector. There are a lot of private organizations springing up all the time. It's important we not focus on one side and leave the other. As a customer, I go to public sectors, I go to the public sector, I engage with the telcos. All the telcos are private. And so you can't just focus on one particular sector, i.e. the public, and say that, oh, in Ghana, maybe we have more people working or more of our workforce in the public sector, and so let's focus on. You can't do that. You have to look everywhere. We have even more one-man businesses springing up. Customer service doesn't focus on just organizations. We're looking at even people standing on the streets and selling. One person selling a scratch card could sell to maybe 100 people in a day. So if they don't understand what customer service is and how their customer feels and what they should do to make the customer happy, they might end up not having a business. So the focus should be on any entity that does any sort of buying or selling or provides a service and collects money from people.
The public. Your profile alluded to the fact that you've experienced customer service in the UK or in London, as you said, and in Ghana here. I want to ask, for our viewers and listeners, broad strokes, what are the differences you've seen in how it's practiced there and how it's done here? For example, when they're having board meetings, management meetings, is it incorporated into these meetings? Are there strategy documents for it? And what's the case in Ghana? Without divulging too much information of those you consult for, what have you seen so far?
I think it's important to note that outside, customer service is a boardroom issue. These are issues that are discussed in the boardroom. Over here, well, they might leave customer service to the HR. Think about it. Oh, this year, maybe let them do 1 or 2 trainings. So that's the difference. When you go out there, if you look at the UK, for example, they have an all-party parliamentary group that sits in the House of Commons, and they make decisions for the benefit of the consumer. So if their parliament is coming up with a bill or a law that will go against the consumer, these people in that parliamentary group will actually get up and say, no, I think it's not going to be in favor of our people. Do we have that? We don't. I'm not saying that our parliament is not friendly and that you can't go, but I don't think there's that provision where people like myself can go and sit there and say, listen, let's look at what helps our customer. We don't have that. That's number one. Number two, I always say that they're here and we're there. Okay, customer service grows, it evolves. They have evolved over years. We're now trying to, get a grasp. You find that happen when you have a lot of multinational companies coming down, because what they do is want to bring their structure from there to here. But it's not just about the structure. It has to be a national focus. Every single organization needs customer service. Every single organization needs customers to survive, whether you're private or public. So if it's national, for example, if we have a regulator that looks at our customer service issues, that would help. I know that with the different regulators, they have little sections that actually talks about how you should, treat the customer, how to seek redress if you're unhappy and all that. But I think a bigger focus will do.
Okay. There's something I think I should ask. What do you think, within the Ghanaian context, do you think we wouldn't have paid attention to it if we hadn't opened up to the international community? And like you said, multinationals came in, we saw the private sector, some Ghanaian companies trying to push and then grow themselves. Do you think we would not have paid focus to it if there wasn't such a vibrant competition within the business environment in Ghana?
I think we would have eventually. People travel out of the country. Even if, let's just assume that multinational companies were not trooping into Ghana. People travel. They have different experiences. So when they come in here, they also expect certain things. Now, customer service is a human thing. I mean, when you walk into someone's home, if you walk in and they see you and not say hello to you and they sit and then just watch you, approach them, you'd feel bad about it. It's the same thing you would feel when you walk into an organization and no one acknowledges you. They don't maintain eye contact. They don't say hello. So eventually, the human side of us would be yearning for more. And we would be asking questions. Why are you not smiling at me? Why don't you care if this shoe that I bought fits me when I got home? Why don't you care if my car is driving okay? Eventually, we would have gotten there. It might have taken longer, but we'll get there.
Let me just play the devil's advocate here. You talking about when you enter an organization, you expect they should receive you. But in our culture, they say the one who enters should rather do the greeting for the people to respond. Do you think that some of these cultural effects of the Ghanaian society feed into the negative perception or the negative customer experience we see on social media, especially around us?
It does. I mean, there are one or two things that definitely affect our mindset when it comes to customer service. And I think I keep using this. If you look at the word serve, I was having a discussion with you earlier on, and I was telling you I always like to psychoanalyze the situation, not just look at it as this is what the situation is. If you look at the word serve itself, to the African, or let me just stick to Ghana, to the Ghanaian, it's a derogatory word. We don't see the word serve as something that you do to add value to someone. So, Philip, if you have Ajwa at home, right, usually domestic help at home would be somebody that a family member brought from the village. Oh, Ajwa needs somewhere to stay. So Ajwa is in your home. Ajwa cleans your home. Ajwa cooks for your children. Ajwa takes your children to school. Yet she might not even be getting paid for that job. Now, you are not placing any value on Ajwa, even though she's doing all these things that she would have been paid thousands of dollars for or pounds for if she was somewhere else. Now, Ajwa serves your visitor. So when you have a visitor, your visitor comes in, what word do you use to instruct Ajwa to take care of your customer or to take care of the visitor? You say, Ajwa, serve Uncle Kofi, or Ajwa, serve Daddy, or Ajwa, come and serve me. So you see Ajwa to be here, and you use the word serve to instruct Ajwa. Yeah. So when you go to the bank, even as a teller or even as a bank manager, someone walks in and says, what's going on here? Someone should serve me. I think psychologically your mind goes back to your home where you have a domestic help that you don't even value. And that's the word you use to, instruct them. So a lot of the things that we do in our homes, our culture, actually affects how we perceive customer service. But it's important to note, when you said when you walk into someone's home, you're supposed to greet.
They always ask you to greet first.
You're doing business. You want the money. You want the money. And when we say that the customer is king and we say that the customer is your boss, these are some of the things that actually shows that your customer is king or that your customer is your boss, because you would not watch your king walk in and then you slouch and expect the king to come and greet you.
So you would opine or you'd argue that it's better that if I walk into the barbering shop, if I walk into a retail mall, if I walk into a restaurant or whatever, I know with the hotels, especially the restaurants, they're always welcoming you because I come to eat, have a good time, pay a lot of money for virtually little amount of food and go. But then that's a debate for another day. But how then do we infuse this into the Ghanaian culture? Because sometimes you can go to a place and genuinely you would expect them to receive you. But when you go in and then you don't greet everybody, you expect them to ask you, oh boss, how far? Good morning. Then you don't mind them and they too, then they choke. They don't mind you, absolutely. Then everybody's there. How then are we going to infuse this into the fabric of the Ghanaian?
I always tell people, look, listen, you need to hire right. And this puts a big burden or responsibility on HR experts. Hire the right people. You sit in an interview with somebody, they've got all the credentials, they've got all the certificates, they can't even smile. You can tell they're not passionate about people. They wouldn't know how to build a relationship. And then you put that person in a position where they're constantly facing and dealing with customers. They're not going to do the right thing. So first of all, hire the right people, train people. Organizations always want to do cost-effective things when it comes to customer service. But what they forget is if you don't train your people properly, they will cost you more. It will cost you more because they will do things like not even saying hello to the customer, not smiling, not being able to resolve their complaint. So I think, first of all, hire the right people, train them, put the standards in place. This is very difficult to do because sometimes as managers, you're even doing the wrong thing yourself. These people have become your friend. This is like your little, tribe. and then you realize things are going wrong, you now have to go and tell them, going forward, I want you to smile when you see the customer. I want you to not chew or eat in the presence of the customer. It has to be a standard that you've set, and you have to be willing to follow. And when people go against these standards, make sure that they're reprimanded.
I want to break down the hiring and the training part. Let's start with the hiring. You've consulted for companies. In their interview, I don't know what to call it, what they give out when they are hiring people on board, so to prospective employees. There's a portion that you are supposed to fill. So they ask you, can you work in teams? And everybody ticks yes. Can you handle pressure? Everybody ticks yes. Do you ever see anything where it talks about, it gives scenarios based on customer service, something that involves human interactions that will test you? I know sometimes there are some of these things in there, but they may not necessarily speak to the issue of customer service. What have you gleaned from your consulting works around?
There's never really specific questions. So anytime I panel an interview, I make sure I ask you scenario-based questions. I'm not really focusing on the paper, because people would always go, yes, 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 yes. And then when they leave, you haven't actually heard how they will deal with a customer in a particular situation. So it's more important to ask them the question instead of asking them to tick. But you're spot on when you say that we hardly ever have questions that are directed at checking people's efficiency when it comes to dealing with customers. It's hardly there. It's only because we don't, it's customer service is never really a focus. In some organizations, when people don't perform, those, oh, put her in customer service. And I keep saying, you need your toppest brains to be working within the customer service area, because you need people who can think on their feet, they can think critically, people who know how to, persuade and speak to customers. They have proper manners. You don't need people who are not being productive, to just go and do customer service. No.
And on the issue of training, what are the types of models that are available? So imagine you're supposed to tell our viewers or listeners in 2 minutes what's your typical structure for training in customer service, because somebody at home may find it hard to conceptualize what training for customer service will do. Are we looking at our clothes? Are we looking at our speech, haircuts? What would that type of training look like?
You're looking at everything. I, over the years, have realized that you cannot give everybody the same uniform. Different organizations need different types of training. So we have a skeletal, framework that we use. But if I'm training people from the transportation industry, it's different. If I'm training people from hospitality, it's different. But usually with training, we're looking first of all at changing the mindset. And so we're looking at their perceptions, what the global standard for their particular industry is. And then we're going to look at you as the human being. What's your level? Your communication, how well do you communicate? What a good communicator is. We're looking at teamwork. We're looking at your telephone etiquette, personal and professional grooming, critical thinking, which is a subject that I think should be taught in schools. Because in any area of business, you need to be a critical thinker. COVID has taught us a lot. Those that could think critically have been able to come up with new ways of still serving their customers, and those that couldn't are stuck and complaining.
Last week, we hosted the Dean of the University of Ghana Business School. If you were sitting to my right or right in front of you, would you recommend fixing this in the business school's curriculum? And if you were fixing it in there, are you going to do it for levels 1 to 4, or from undergrad through postgrad, or just for the hundreds? They'll get it done, some core compulsory course, and it's out of the way. What would be the structuring if you were supposed to advise the University of Ghana Business School, for example?
I would recommend level 1 to 4. It's a continuous thing. Customer service is not something you learn today and then it's gone, especially for the business school. I don't know how a business school can run without a customer service module. When people set up businesses, or when people work for other people in the business area, who are they working for? Who are they serving? Who are they selling to? They're selling to customers. And so how can they then study a whole course of business and not have a module in how to deal with the customer, how to understand them, how to speak to them, how to treat them? So I would recommend from level 1 to 4, we'll have different structures, different modules. In between, it has to be practical for me. I don't really, buy into the dump it all on them in English and then walk away. People have to go away, do case studies, come back, write, different types of reports, just so that they understand the reality or the practicality of customer service.
But Yvonne, do you think we are overstating the importance of customer service? Again, I would have to be direct and bold to you. Do you think we are overselling it? Because after all, if we establish a company, obviously we need the capital, we need the HR, we need the legal and stuff like that. Yes, everybody knows that for sectors that rely on customers or consumers for them to propel, they need that element of customer service. But for the vast majority who may not be necessarily interfacing with a customer on a regular basis, they might say you are overselling yourself. And perhaps, what will be your argument to that?
That's what we used to think. That's what everyone believed. But that's not the case. Give me one organization or one sector that doesn't liaise or do anything customer related. Even if you have 90% of your workforce sitting behind closed doors, right? And you're selling a product. Let's say you do it online. You are still selling to a group of people called your customers. So you might not necessarily see them face to face, but you should understand why it's important to respond to their emails on time. You should understand why it's important to use certain words when you're dealing with your customer. You should understand why you need to empathize with your customer when they haven't received their goods at the time that they're supposed to. So as I sit here now, I can't think of any sector or any organization or any business that doesn't need customer service, regardless of the number of people that face the customer. Even if it's just one person within your organization out of the 100 who faces a customer, those at the back need to understand the importance of what customer service plays within your organization, because their output will become the input of that person at the front. It's a team. So once they understand that, look, even though the customer doesn't see me, I need to work and make sure I get my report on time so that the person who faces the customer can deliver on time. So everybody is important.
You've consulted for a number of companies. Now, 2 questions to you. 1, do they still come back for your services? 2, what has been the effect of your first service with them in terms of training their staff or trying to shape them up in the customer service? I want you to be very blunt with us and then tell us the truth.
I will.
What has been the effect of that? Has it been positive? Do you have situations where they come and tell you, you know what, Yvonne, we are done with you, it's okay, we don't need it anymore? How has that worked out?
You have organizations who would say, you know what, they just want to tick, like you said. Have we done training? Have we recruited? And so they'll come to you and say, Yvonne, can you just come and do training for me? In the beginning, when I came back to Ghana, I used to do that. I felt like, do what your customer wants. But now I'm consulting. So I tell people, listen, I want to make sure that when I give you the solution and I take your money, you know that you've paid for value. So I'm not just coming to sit down and then train based on what you, because you are not the expert, what you think your people need. I'm going to do my assessment. I'm going to check, give you exactly what you need. So the solution I give you must be a bespoke solution that actually is tailored for what you want. So I have had clients who would, yes, they'll do it one time and then leave. I've had others who've done it once. I would give them advice based on what I think or I recommend they do going forward. They might not do it. They fall along the line, Yvonne, you were right. Can you come back and help us? So it's a mixed bag. But I've had more customers now understanding me and going with my argument. I always say that it's better to have a consultant who works with you throughout the years or the months, instead of just having somebody whom you pay a lot of money and then they do one-time training and walk off. It's a continuous thing.
Another question I think is prudent to ask, and Yvonne is the lead publisher, I would call it, or lead researcher, if you want to call it that, of the Ghana Customer Satisfaction Index or Ghana Customer Service Index. I think this is the second one. Am I right? Yes. It was done in 2019.
This will be the third.
So
what we're talking about now is the second one.
The second one, yes. So it was done in 2019, and in January 2020, she went around and then discussed the tenets of it. We'll delve into that in a bit. But a question I want to ask you. I'll take a commercial break, but I want you to stew on this for me. We've discussed the private sector. What about the public sector? I want you to tell us if you've been approached by proper government, when I say civil service or public service in general, and whether you have been approached by them, and what sort of lapses you've seen in there, and that you think if you were in there, you might be able to correct. That's a very tough sector, you must admit. I want you to stew on that for me. This is Spotlight Business. My guest, Yvonne Ohui MacCartey, we're discussing customer service as we celebrate Customer Service Month in October. We're taking a quick break. We'll be right back.
Young people like you and I are making great change.
3 presidents have been to this ungrateful party.
My cousin here wants power, but he doesn't want to get his hands dirty.
Your campaign has been saddled with a lot of issues and it won't survive another scandal.
Is there something I should know? I want to know Nana Goma.
She's only doing something we're all afraid to do.
Anaba, so what kind of lessons are we putting out there for our youngsters?
Most of us don't even know what we want until it hits us in the face.
Every single time he comes around, she just turns into this emotional, wishy-washy, love-struck thing. That is exactly what she needs.
You're president for 8 years. You make me president for another 8. You rule for 16 years. You continue. What you didn't finish. Build your legacy. You have your way with me. You use me as usual.
Are you going after a man who has championed your political career to this point? A man who got you sponsors to back your ambitions?
What the hell?
Hey! Don't just need to speak.
It's a blatant disregard for due process, Charlotte. And I'm not having it.
No, this is not business as usual. This is a different kind of business. From the global stock market to our central bank to insights on insurance and investment, Spotlight is the show for you. Here, we look beyond the numbers. On Spotlight, we'll tell you the complexity behind the figures. On Spotlight, we examine hardcore financial issues. Join me, Philip Nanfuri, on MX24, together with policymakers and experts as we talk business. Welcome back from the break. This is Spotlight Business. My guest, Yvonne Ohui MacCartey. She's the president of the Institute of Customer Service Professionals, well accomplished in the area of customer service, and has proven that it is indeed a lucrative area. As you've seen some of her clients, she's been consulting for big companies, which are giving her fat checks, and she's filling her bag with them. I saw her bag before we came on air, very filled with a lot of checks, advanced checks for her payments. But I want us to delve into the index she and her colleagues created, and basically she will give us more detail, but from my understanding they are trying to measure customer service within Ghana. So they looked at 9 key sectors based on a number of metrics. The metrics are more or less what we call the variables. So if we take like the hospitality industry, what are we looking for in there? Yvonne and her friends said we're looking for look and feel, competence, professionalism, the ease of doing business, processes and procedures, customer-focused innovations, your staff engagements, as well as your feedback and complaint system. A lot of us are more concerned about the feedback and complaints. How do we let people know what is going on? Some of us too are interested in the field. We want to get to a place and have a lot of car park space. We want to be attended to by a security man, told to park here. When we enter, we want somebody to smile at us, tell us this is where the water is, this is where the washroom is. But with the key sectors, and I'll read them out to you. She looked at the financial institutions, banks and insurance. She looked at utilities, that's water, electricity, etc. She looked at telcos, hospitality, healthcare, retail malls, food and non-food, public institutions, online business. Before we come into this, I was asking you, have you approached government? Has government approached you to consult for them to train people in the civil service or the public service?
When I came initially, I'd say about 5 years ago, for the last 5 years, I really haven't approached, any government institution. I feel that sometimes when the willingness is there, they'll look for you. But I used to approach them before.
What were the reactions? Was it positive?
No. It wasn't positive. I'm not even going to beat about the bush. It wasn't positive. There wasn't any willingness. Oh, yeah, we understand you, it's important, but then it ends there.
Okay. With your service index, the report, let me call it that, the 9 key sectors: financial institutions, utilities, telcos, hospitality, healthcare, retail malls, public institutions, and online businesses. Of all these 9 sectors, which of them do you feel had the most complaints in terms of negative customer service, and which of these had the best? I know what the report has said, but I want you to tell us.
Okay, so the actual ranking is indicative of those that actually got a lot of complaints. So we had the public sector being last, telcos, which was 4th in 2018, actually came last but 1. And then at the top we had the retail, food and non-food, followed by online businesses, and then transportation.
Why your answer before this gave some gleaning into the public sector issue. Some of us have seen some things, but I think, would you buy the argument some of the institutions are trying now when it comes to customer service? I have had some engagements with ECG, and I was quite pleased with a lot of the developments they've made. I saw an ECG truck in my area. I was passing by. My power was on at that time, but I was feeling like they were coming to work, and then they were like, they will be taking out the power temporarily. Everybody was nice. I was quite surprised. And they send messages on the app. But there they are last on the list. Why so?
You know, when they say one bad nut like really spoils the lot, that's what it is. So you have Ghana Police, you have SNIT, you have DVLA, you have GIPC, you have all these public institutions there. So even if ECG, and I agree with you 100%, their call center response is absolutely top notch. I don't know what happened. I don't know how they were trained, but there's a transformation. I mean, they'll call you when you call. They're very, respectful of you, even if you're angry. They found a way to empathize and then calm you down, get back to you at the right time. They're not asking questions like, what's your name? They're now asking you, am I speaking to Miss MacCarthy? So you can tell that, of course, there's been an advancement. But if you have just 1 or 2 of them doing the right thing, and then, a larger number of them not doing the right thing, obviously we'll still pull them back to the bottom.
So it may be more of a perception issue feeding negatively into other institutions, even though they may be doing
highly possible.
Okay. And with the telcos, why the last but 1? What were the findings in there? What were the responses you got from the respondents, if I can say so? Why did the telcos drop?
Going back to that, I think a lot of people feel helpless when it comes to the telcos. I have to be very honest with you. You buy credit, for example, some of the comments, you buy credit, there's no mechanism to check. You're using your data, and then all of a sudden it goes off. It could be maybe in the wee hours of the night. You're unable to even call them, or you call and then they'll tell you, we're having some issues with our system. What do you do as a consumer or a customer? There's really nothing you can do. So the complaints that came from there sounded more like, it's not as if the telcos don't want to help. Maybe they need an upgrade. I don't want to mention particular, telecommunication companies, but we had a situation where a particular entity just woke up one day and said, your lines are not working anymore, we've merged, so just go to the next so-and-so outlet and go and re-register.
You think that was poorly executed?
I ranted so much about it. I couldn't understand how, for the life of me, someone will not, or an organization will not, focus on informing people even 6 months before. You knew these things were going to happen, so you keep informing them. Keep doing a countdown until people realize that, this is what I need to do to continue using this particular, chip or whatever it is.
They may argue messages were sent on this very device I use. I got a couple of messages.
Let me be honest with you. If you're running a telcos, ask yourself the base of your customers. Okay, so the majority of your customers, are they people who would read? Be honest with yourself. How many of them really read text messages coming from the service provider? So if you're running TV adverts, you're running radio, you have to go where the people are. Don't sit and go where you think they would be.
And this year, I know you had a discussion on reports in January of this year, but we've had a lot happen within the coronavirus time. Do you think telcos will be on the app again in your next report, given that a lot of us had to access our data calls, a lot of things, because we were home, everybody was trying to buy data, go online. Do you think that has more or less metamorphosed their customer service, and then we're going to see them back up again?
I will be honest with you. I don't want to preempt the results
for next one,
for the next couple of months. But I think Corona actually brought to bear what the issues actually were, because you had a lot of people at home, you had a lot of people going virtual, going on meetings, and sometimes systems honestly didn't work. Sometimes people couldn't get network, people could not put calls through. So I'm waiting for the report to see how people felt that the telcos prepared for them during Corona. But if anything, I think it will put them on their feet as well, because their complaints will double and triple.
Okay, and I don't want you to give us details of the report ahead of time, so I think I have to rephrase my question. These 9 key sectors, do we think there will be, are you going to bring on more sectors in here, or these 9 are fully representative of the entire framework of business in the Ghanaian economy?
Absolutely not. There's still a few more we could add, but that would come on as we go along. So this year it's 10.
Okay.
What we did is split banking and insurance. So before we used to put them together. But then we think we have a lot of insurance companies that needs to stand on its own. So now we have 10.
Okay. From the report, you gave Ghana a grade C. I think if we were in the university, this would be a very terrible grade, honestly. A C is not something that you should be proud of. I think we scored twice in both your reports or your indexes. Given this pandemic, and a lot has happened, and this brings us also to customer service within the era of COVID. Do you think that, one, things are going to be better using your grading metric? Are we going to move from a C to a B to an A in that sense? And two, with the pandemic ravaging almost everything around us, do you think customer service has improved for the better, or it's been worse? And your personal experience, when you go, especially with the protocols you're supposed to observe, no mask, no entry, wash your hands, temperature taking, what has been your experience from a customer service perspective with that?
I have to be honest with you. I'll be surprised if we do any better than the C. We had 62.61 for 2019. I'll be surprised, because I think a lot of organizations were not ready for Corona. A lot of people, especially the public sector, a lot of the work that they do is face-to-face. They have not integrated technology into a lot of their interactions. And so having to stay at home and not open up where you can't see people face to face was a very, 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 I think would have been a very difficult time for them, And if you're not an organization that is able to quickly think on your feet and say, look, we have to find different ways of doing things, you would suffer. And I'm anticipating that in our report, we would see that a lot of these organizations will suffer, apart from those that already use technology as a means of communicating or doing business, like the telcos, online businesses, even some of the hotels, because they do their booking online and stuff. But even with them, because you're not allowed to see people face to face, they have also suffered. So I will be surprised if we do any better than a C. And then you asked me a question about people's Corona protocol preparedness, what I've observed. Initially it was, people were strict. They wouldn't allow you into the bank if you don't do it. I see people getting tired. Relaxed. Yeah, I see people, they're lax. If you say you don't want to wash your hands, okay. We're a bit more relaxed. So I think going forward, we still need to pump the importance of maintaining some of these things. And even in our questionnaire, we've asked, how would you rate this particular company or organization when it comes to their coronavirus protocol preparedness? So how do you think they've prepared to keep you safe? So that's also an element that customers will be looking out for.
Yvonne, social media, positive influence, you use it a lot for your business. I follow your posts, LinkedIn, Facebook, on how we can more or less seek better customer service and how we can deliver better customer service. Now, social media has the power to either accentuate positives or aggravate negatives, whatever you want to call it. In this era where people tweet, post anything, and I was on my Instagram timeline a month ago where I saw somebody who had bought something from these Instagram traders, or let me call it those who sell stuff on Instagram. And I think the sale and purchase didn't go very well. I think the person who was selling wanted money up front. The person who was buying wanted to see the product, and there was an exchange, and then it was posted on there, and then they went back and forth. And later, the person came to apologize on Instagram for everybody to see. Are you for a situation where when you experience bad customer service, you don't go through the institution first to have that sort of one-on-one tete-a-tete, or you think it's better you just go on social media, splash everything there, denigrate, and then when they come back to apologize, then you say, okay, Yvonne came to apologize, we've made peace. What are your views on that?
I mean, I think if you're dealing with an organization and you feel that they haven't done things correctly, the best people to speak to is the organization. But if you've tried several times, as with many cases that you find in Ghana, usually you find that when people rant on social media, it's because they've tried. They've tried to get in touch with the person, they've sent messages, they've made phone calls, they've been made promises that were never pulled through. And so the person feels like, you know what, I don't have anywhere else to go. I don't have anyone speaking for me. Let me put it out there so that people will get to know who you are. So I would always advise people, go to the organization first, because it could be a misunderstanding. When we say that people are doing good, excellent customer service, it doesn't mean that those organizations do not make mistakes. But it means that when they make mistakes, they easily recover, or they find ways in which they can, pick themselves up. So go to the organization first. If they don't listen, I would not stop people. In fact, I would encourage people, if they don't listen to you, go on social media.
Okay, so look at this way for me. With the greatest of respect, and I'm sure you would agree with me, we're in a generation where a lot of people are constantly and actively on social media. People are telling us what they are eating, what cars they're driving, what music they're listening to. I would say my generation, and maybe some of yours, we are always active on here. Regardless of what happens, we are posting, we are telling the world what's up to. This is a case where somebody walks into a place and experiences bad customer service on a day that an institution has had its worst. Normally, that institution would have been doing good customer service. But because of this sort of innate nature we have as young people to go out there and post and tell it, we've gone to do it and we've destroyed the company. How are we going to square such a circle? How then do we fix this situation where this generation is always out there and posting, at the same time ensure that people are doing the right thing and they don't offend such people for them to bring down the company? How do we balance that? So,
like I said, you really cannot stop people from, sharing their opinions or their experiences. That's why it should become a focus of yours to make sure that 99.9% of the time you're doing the right thing, not to offend such people. Because you could have maybe 100 people walking through your organization today. Maybe you offend just one. You never know who you might offend. You don't know the person's character. You don't know what they think. You don't know how they behave. You don't even know their motive. So it's important you're on your guard all the time. You can't stop people who do that. However, if your customer service is good most of the time, even when that thing is put on the internet, you'll find other people who've received excellent service from you coming to back you up and say, no, I'm sure they had a bad day. Or, oh, I know one or two people you can call. And if you're quickly able to recover or deal with the situation, it ends it there. So people usually have a problem when there's a complaint or when there's a grievance and you do not deal with it as an organization. Okay, so in addressing such a crisis, if your brand has been tarnished because of a situation like this, I know you've gone into details about that, but I want to find out, if you were the one behind the wheels of advising, what were some of the things you'd be telling the company to do? The company's name has already been tarnished. Everybody thinks the company is in the gutter. What were some of the things you'd be telling the company to do to bring back their image and re-engage the customers or the public? I think the first thing is to engage the person. Because someone might put something on Facebook today, they might come back the next week and put it on there, and they would continue until they feel that they've done their worst, right? So engage the person. Find out exactly what happened, because probabilities are, if it's really an issue that you, or something that you did wrong, and you don't solve that problem or get to understand what caused the problem, it would happen again. So connect with the person, find out what it is, how you can resolve it. There's no better advertisement than that person who felt that you didn't treat them properly, going back and say, you know what, I spoke to the manager, I think I might have just, judged the situation wrongly. They're actually very nice people. That would wipe off whatever the person said before. So connect with the person first and make sure that going forward you are addressing the issues that created the problem.
This is Spotlight Business. My name is Nanfuri. My guest, Yvonne Ohui MacCartey. We're taking our final break. We'll be right back.
Opinions are like onions. Everybody has one.
Abortion is a no-no. As a human being, you must take responsibility for all your actions and inactions. Your misjudgment shouldn't be enough grounds to take a life.
No. I disagree with you because look, if you do not legalize it, people will go to quack process anyway, who might end up not just kill the baby, but the mother as well.
Why should I waste my time, join a long queue under the hot sun to vote for a political party, knowing very well that nothing would be achieved at the end of the day?
Something will be achieved. It's your civic responsibility to turn out to vote. Vote and vote for a good leader.
Governments need to cater to every graduate, diversify the economy, invest in other sectors.
But the government cannot do it all. That is why we need the youth to take up the mantle and set up their own businesses. That is how we will create economic viability.
Here on Opposing Views, we take your views, my views, and the views of the experts and put them in the right context for you, our discerning viewers.
No, this is not business as usual. This is a different kind of business. From the global stock market, to our central bank, to insights on insurance and investment, Spotlight is the show for you. Here, we look beyond the numbers. On Spotlight, we'll tell you the complexity behind the figures. On Spotlight, we examine hardcore financial issues. Join me, Philip Nanfuri, on MX24, together with policymakers and experts as we talk business. Right, you're welcome back. This is the final lap of our conversation. We've been discussing customer service tonight as we celebrate Customer Service Month. And our guest, Yvonne Ohui MacCartey, a few questions before you take leave of us. Have you ever encountered a customer who has never been satisfied with everything that has been done in an establishment for him? If yes, what's the solution to such an individual?
I always say to people, I don't know if it's because I'm an expert, there's nothing like a customer who is never satisfied. Usually when you sit down with the organization and ask them, why are you saying the person is never satisfied? Oh, because they didn't like this thing that we did for them. But did you ask them if that is what they wanted? So a lot of organizations are giving customers what they think customers want. If you go into most organizations and ask them, have you run or conducted a survey in the last 6 months, the last year? No, you haven't. So how are you continuously giving people products and services in the way that you think fits them when you haven't spoken to them? So there is always a customer who might not be too happy, but I would never say that there are customers who are never satisfied. It's because you're not finding out exactly what they need.
You haven't met my grand-auntie, but anyway, I will not say anything. I will not say anything. So the future of customer service. In your report, you mentioned two things I thought were very important. Page 60 of your report, and you were talking about the solutions, and you said we should develop customer-facing staff skills and emotional intelligence. I know we've discussed a lot about the staff skills. How are we going to work on people's emotional intelligence? This is a very hard task, isn't it?
It's hard, but it's not hard. When you look at issues to do with emotions, it has a lot to do with the practicality of things. It's not about book. Okay, it's about teaching some of these things even from a very young age. The way people behave or their attitudes are things that they form when they're younger. And looking at people's emotional intelligence, we're not looking at trying to impact some of these things when you're now a worker. We're looking at trying to teach you some of these things when you're much younger, how to deal with your emotions, how to analyze situations, how to respond instead of react when there's a problem, how to use the thinking side of your brain or the logical side of the brain instead of the emotional side of your brain. So yes, it's something that I spoke about, and you're saying is difficult. It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's much more difficult when you're teaching an older person. But if we start from the beginning and we're able to, in stages, inculcate that into our curricula, it would work.
And you mentioned anticipating customer needs. Do you think in the Ghanaian context we fare well with anticipating anything? Because a lot of us are very reactive, I think, in nature. Yes. Something happens and sometimes you should have the foresight to see that this may happen. But hey, it's happened, then we start doing this. How are we going to deal with the anticipating of the customer's needs? Engage
your customers. Engage them. If I want to know what makes you happy, if I want to know what you expect of me in the next 3 months, if I want to know the product or the services that you would love, I'd have to engage you. What do you want? How is your life changing? What are you anticipating, that this company will do for you? Once you're able to give me those answers, I use that to formulate my products and my services or the channels of communication with you. So the only answer to that is engage.
Final word to viewers and listeners in 30 seconds about the month of customer service and customer service beyond this month.
Right. Okay, I think it's important for us to realize that customer service now is not just about taking someone's money and giving them a product or a service. It's about the strategies, it's about your planning, it's about the modules that you have, it's about the type or the caliber of people that you even employ. So let's focus on the business, and customer service is the business. We're gradually moving from just a transactional economy to a relationship economy. And if you're not taking the time to understand what you need to do as an entity, as an organization, even as an individual, you realize that very soon you'll be left behind. So let's focus. Customer service is not something that you push, into the corner. It's something you need to focus on if you want your business to grow.
And you had a short message for the ladies' breast cancer awareness month.
Yes. Well, my message to the ladies out there, and even to the gentlemen, encourage them to go and have their tests. It's better if you're tested earlier. Go and do the tests. Find out if there's any help you need. And if you do, speak to the right people who would be able to give you the help. I think there's no shame in doing some of these things. Before, we used to feel that, I don't even want to know just in case I have it. You're better off knowing now so that you can get the help you need. So please, let's go out there in our numbers. It's October, it's Breast Cancer Month. Let's go and get tested.
Yvonne Ohui MacCartey, she's the president of the Institute of Customer Service Professionals. She's been our guest tonight on Spotlight Business. We've been discussing customer service within the Ghanaian context, and especially as we celebrate Customer Service Month. So go out there, share your experiences with us, post on our page on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever, MX24GH. I want to say a very big thank you for joining us. My name is Philip Nanfuri. Have a good night.